Hey everyone, and welcome back to another C# RPG tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to be creating a basic poison cloud. Now this can be used for different attacks that monsters might use, and it doesn't just have to be a poison cloud. You can make it anything that you want. Maybe it's an area in your game that has lava or different stuff like that, and while your player is walking through it, you want to deal damage to the player or slow them down or do a bunch of different stuff that way. So we're going to be using onTriggerStay. You can also use onTriggerEnter and onTriggerExit depending on what you want to achieve. I guess I'll show you guys some other examples at the end of the video that can cover a little bit more than just a poison cloud. So I went ahead and I created the poison cloud. Now if we click on the particle system real quick, you can see it's just a really basic particle effect. And then I created pretty much a box with an alpha texture, and I set this as a trigger, and this is going to be our trigger area. So when our player walks into this and they're standing in it, it's going to tick over time and deal damage to them. But yeah, you can do a bunch of different stuff with this. It doesn't just have to be poison. You can use it for a bunch of different mechanics. So I guess we can go jump into our code, and I'll show you guys how to set this up so it actually ticks the damage. So we'll just jump back into our user stats script, and we want to create one variable for this. So we're going to be creating a public float called tickTime, and we're going to be using this to reference the time.delta time that counts down, and when it gets down to 0 or below 0, then we will trigger our code. So if we go down here, we can add another function that's onTriggerStay. And we'll pass in a collider here, and we'll just call it collisionInfo2, just to make it simple. And from this point, we'll just throw our tick time down here, and we'll do minus equals time.delta time. So we're going to be saying if our player is standing in the trigger, we want this tick time to count down, and when it gets down to 0 or below 0, we're going to trigger our code. So the first thing we need here is we need to make sure that our player is actually standing in the poison area. So we'll name this poison area, and we'll close that out. And so now that we're making sure that our player is in the poison area, we want to do if tick time is less than or equal to 0, then effectively we want to make set tick time back up to 2 so it starts counting down again. But what we want to do before this is actually subtract from our player's HP. So we can set that to 1. So what this is pretty much saying that every 2 seconds it's going to be dealing 1 damage to our player while they're standing in the poison cloud. So we'll just go jump into game and test this out. So we want to set our core HP and our max HP to 100. And we'll go step into the poison cloud. So if you see here, as we're standing in it, it's going to be counting down our HP. And if we leave it, then we are no longer standing in it, and it's not going to tick down the time. So from here, with the knowledge that we know of creating this, we can do a bunch of other stuff, such as, let's say your player is walking through mud or water, or something that you want to slow your player down. We can do void onTriggerEnter. And we can do the same exact thing with the collider. We can just do collisionInfo3. And we can create another thing that's onTriggerExit. So now what we're saying is we're not keeping track of the player staying in there. We're just saying once the player enters it, it's going to do something, and once the player exits, it's going to do something. So we don't need to constantly tick these numbers. So what we could do is affect the player's actual movement speed. So I'm not going to go through and code this right now. but all we would do is we would reference the user movement code and our base run speed. So this is the speed that my player moves at. What we could do is effectively just affect speed equals to, let's say, something slow equals 5. And once our player exits that trigger, we can set speed back equal to 15. So in this case, if you wanted the trigger just to slow your player down, you could do that. You could do a mix of these two if you really wanted to. So on trigger stay, we could even, affect the speed in here if we really wanted to. So let's see here real quick. We can just do this .get component. I'll just show you guys it working. Let's see here. So we're going to be affecting user movement. So we want to reference the code. User movement. And from here we want to grab what variable we want to affect. So just run speed. And hopefully it's not capitalized. And we can do equals 5. And then, but we would still need to use on trigger exit if we're still using this, so we can just grab this. Poison area, collision info 3. Close that off. And we'll grab this piece of code again and paste that in there and set it back to 15. Actually, we're going to do it a little bit slower than that just so we can tell. So hopefully this video is not going on for too long. I just wanted to cover some extra stuff if you guys wanted to know a little bit more about this. So now that our player is in here, we can see that they're walking really slowly. Now I saw a slight issue. If we actually wanted to, because it waited till the tick time to slow us down. So all we'd have to do is just copy this if we didn't want it actually affecting that and put it into here so it doesn't even, it can ignore the tick time altogether and just slow us down immediately. So if we try that again, now our player is moving really slow while they're in this volume. And when we leave, we can run a lot faster. So you guys can take the knowledge that you have with this and create a bunch of crazy unique stuff. You could do lava, you could do water physics and make it so the player is swimming slower or anything like that. You could do different volumes where the player bounces around while they're in them, or there's no gravity. You can completely eliminate gravity. And you guys can just experiment with this to your desire. But yeah, until next time, yep, see you guys.